Hi, let's get back into it now for this AA series where we're really looking at those amazing tools that we can use to support communication, learning, and inclusion. And you're here with me again, Amanda Hartman, speech pathologist and AAC enthusiast. And we're going to start today with just really that really logistical, practical stuff that you need to do, like to make a start with AAC in a class or just in one classroom. How do we roll that out in a school? We obviously have other parts to this picture, like the different AAC tools and the different environment setups you can provide, and we'll have those in subsequent parts to this second series of videos. We also have lots of stuff about our communication partners and the skills they need. So let's crack on to everything that we need to talk about. And I'm going to start with a grass skiing analogy. My parents grew up in New Zealand as skiers, and when we moved to Australia in the 80s, you can probably tell by the my fashion sense in my yellow velour tracksuit here that we were in the 80s. When we moved to Australia in the 80s, my family found this really cool thing out the back of Brisbane where you could go grass skiing, and my dad always thought it would be great if the kids could learn to ski, because I grew up skiing in New Zealand. And so I like to use my experience learning to grass ski as an analogy for anybody who's starting to learn something new, and in particularly why getting started with AAC it provides us a good analogy and comparison. So if you're in a school and you're thinking to yourself, we need AAC to happen in our school, you need to start with an environment. Like for me to be a really good skier, I probably need a snow environment, to be honest. So I feel like that I was I was pranked by my parents, like thinking that I could learn to ski in this hot summer Brisbane environment on grass. There's no snow. I wasn't set up right for success. And schools need to reflect that if you want AAC to be successful, your entire school community environment needs to reflect that AAC is something that's done there. And I was already off to the wrong start in learning to be a skier. The next things that you need to have tools. For me, I don't even have any ski poles. I don't have safety equipment. I've just got these big old, probably too big for me, what are they? Ski boots on tracks to go down the hill with. So really schools need to make an investment so that if they want AAC to be successful, they need to make the investment into the tools that will do that. Without the right tools, you're going to fall over. It's not going to succeed if you don't have the right equipment in your hands. Much like me, I don't look like I can ski much at all here. And then the next part of the equation is you need teaching and people. You need the right people and lots of teaching. And you see here, I've been taught this little jinky move, and I look like I've got it all together, but I probably don't know how many ski moves I was ever taught as I'm going down the grass slope on my, one ski occasion every 6 months. We didn't go often enough, so there wasn't definitely enough teaching for that, and not enough people around doing it together. I look very on my own here trying to learn to ski. AAC will be the same. If you don't have time and the teaching and the people around you to do it, it just is harder, that's all. And then, of course, as I said, the most important component is that we need to realize that we have time. We need to learn to fall down and get back up again and keep going. And we need the time to accept that AAC and it being successful is important with that time component added. So, or valued. How long will it take? So to answer your question, no, I cannot now ski as an adult because I wasn't in the right environment with the right tools. I didn't get enough teaching, and I certainly didn't get enough time on the snow slopes. So I was never a skier. If you get some of these components right and you add to the communication and learning of students with intellectual impairment, then that will be amazing. So we're going to look at how we do that. Let's unpack it. AAC in schools. So we've used this model already to point out the most important parts as a framework, as a simple framework to break up these workshops and learning. So you can see, and you'll hear more about the AAC tools and environments and communication partners in other videos. Of course, this whole framework is centered to the fact that we're supporting somebody with possibly communication and learning difficulties who can't rely on speaking. And so we're needing to think of that AAC tool that can support communication and learning. And this is where we start. This is even though the model of thinking about all of those components is good, it's a bit shallow. We have that over umbrella branching of the logistical things that schools must think about. The admin support, funding support, access to AAC, how training looks, what people's attitudes to embedding AAC, how AAC looks within a curriculum focus. And so I just wanted to start most of this session, this video will be covering that. Back in 2023, some school AAC professionals that work in school and we all teamed together and we did like an overview of like the different things that happen in schools, the things that work and don't work, and presented the experiences from different countries. And this was, we did a survey during our presentation. So over 50 AAC professionals in schools answered the questions of what were the common AAC challenges in schools? Like, what are the challenges for us? What stops it being successful? And I think the not enough funding was lower, but even I think it was the lack of resources, the lack of training that sort of came up time and time again. That the teachers, you can see the highest vote was for the teachers' lack of AAC knowledge, that teachers didn't feel well supported enough to be able to know how to use that AAC really well. That's obviously because of a resourcing thing, not enough funding for that training component, and then not enough support from school admin or perhaps someone who knows something about AAC that can support expertly. The limit, some people said that even there wasn't a good partnership with parents in AAC. That's really variable. Probably that's why that number's right in the middle. The bottom one is just a real reflection of the real world in a classroom. The curriculum is full and busy. You have a lot of curriculum demands and a lot of teaching, testing and assessment and data collection that needs to happen in a classroom. And I think that most teachers in the real world would be putting up their hand and go, yeah, curriculum requirements leave very little time for AAC on top. So how are we going to overcome some of these challenges? What are some of the things that we can look at? Hopefully we have some starting points that we can push back on some of these things, particularly for you in your school context. So how will you start? I always think about, that how you start really depends on the school situation and why you're considering AAC at all as a solution that provides, that is about providing a differentiated solution for different students in the class. And I would like to talk about a top-down model and also a bottom-up model. Both are valuable and useful, might be a combination of both, but these are components of things that you'll need. So a top-down model would mean that you're starting at the top with leadership and admin have identified that AAC is a really important differentiation and inclusion tool for learners in the school. So it's not, maybe the idea came because you had a particular student that needed AAC identified, but really the top-down means that the leadership have really taken this concept and see this as a tool that can be used in the school. When that's the case, it means that the school is able to allocate fundings to this and to not just the AAC tools, but also the training and support of staff. And it also means that quite often when you get a top-down model, which is a really good thing, it means that there's really good systems and protocols in place for measuring progress and change and reflection. And then, this top-down model leads to that overall picture that maybe AAC is being used school-wide or across many classrooms, a majority of classrooms. And it also means that because funding has been allocated to it, systems have been put in place, there's lots of monitoring that allows for more integration and change and adaptation as time goes on. So let's compare that with a bottom-up model, and this may be where you're at. I mean, as I said, every situation will be different. But this is more of a scaled approach where the use of AAC started in specific targeted classrooms, or maybe even one classroom. Obviously, as an identified student has started who arrives with AAC. And so when you start bottom up, typically speaking, that you are targeting specific spots in the school, and it is usually a much smaller amount of scaled funding and resources allocated to this. What's good, though, usually in a bottom up, is it's driven by really dedicated knowledge and teachers who are dedicated to build their knowledge. So a lot of my schools try to develop professional learning communities for something specialized like AAC, where teachers and the community, or that group of people that are dedicated to AAC, work on how you might support and monitor progress, and also how the integration of AAC is happening. And then adoption on a larger scale across the school with leadership support, that comes once success is observed. So this bottom up model, it's the change in the systemic stuff is driven by the teachers on the ground doing the thing, and measuring and tracking their success and what success looks like for them. And then that can be picked up on a larger scale by leadership. So this is the bottom up. In reality, in a practical sense, your school might have a bit of a combination of both. But the things that we do know can help are that support from leadership to understand why we need AAC and what the funding and resources requirements are is really important, because ongoing staff training, but also in-class monitoring, lots of practical on-the-ground training and support for teachers that are using AAC is really beneficial. I also do a promotion that just ongoing staff sharing of stories, sharing of videos, sharing of photos, anything that highlights the AAC, the great AAC work that they're doing, that they can share, so that they get the positive feedback from having had some success, but also that other people can see the great things that can be achieved with AAC. And all that collegial engagement with AAC is something that can be really important and be one of the factors that we know would help. I also see that schools have more success when they identify a knowledgeable other within the school, excuse me, not a external person, but someone on the ground in the school that can help support the AAC in the classroom. I feel like when it's somebody that comes in and out of the school or isn't there, that you can lose the flow of things by not having someone on the ground. That might not be their full-time role. They've probably got lots of other things that they're doing as well, but people know that there is always someone there that has got some AAC skills that they can problem solve with. I think also things like professional learning communities or groups of staff or decisions made in staff meetings. So if those decisions about what we're going to do with AAC, what are our expectations, what are our minimal requirements, that really needs to be set and decided upon by groups rather than just from a single authoritarian position. I think it needs to comes to a collaborative decision where staff can understand why they're doing the AAC and how they would like that to look for themselves. You've got to start collecting video and real class examples of AAC in action. Obviously, for privacy reasons, it's often quite hard to find good quality videos around the traps of AAC in action, because a lot of people they're too afraid, or they're not able for privacy permission purposes, to share what AAC looks like in their classroom. So if you identify some examples in your school that are looking really well, then taking videos of those lessons and where AAC sits in it can be really great to share within the school community. And I also think that one of the biggest success factors that I've seen, and one of the biggest shifts I've seen in the schools I work in, is that when we really focus on how AAC can be embedded into the curriculum, and that means like at the phase of curriculum planning, that you're identifying the key words, the language, the vocabulary that will be needed, so that then AAC is at the forefront of that planning. That really, really helps with success. So teachers aren't kind of trying to do AAC on the hop, on the jump when they're teaching and trying to add it on later. They have intentionally thought about it before when they're doing the curriculum planning, so that those lessons and focus areas and the vocabulary and language that they want to show is there. So another thing for success is really just that documentation and monitoring. So I talked about the importance of collecting photos and videos and anecdotes and stories. But I also wonder, maybe you have other data and measures that you will keep. So we certainly talk about tracking student progress. But I think for a school that adopts AAC across the school or across multiple classrooms, it's really good that you take measures about the environment, like what's the access to AAC around the school like? How visible is it? Can you tell that we're a school that does AAC? And also the knowledge testing, like the knowledge skills, maybe it's the confidence measure or familiarity or what they think about the AAC. Is this for my students, or it doesn't really work? So tracking change in the attitude, skills and knowledge of school personnel towards AAC is also can be really nice tracking data, monitoring stuff. I'm a big fan of trying to document what things are working and what does not, so that things can be avoided and things can be replicated. When we see something working really well, we can repeat and do that again and again. So this, as I said, those were some of the overarching things that we really need to think about in a school when we're getting started. But now let's think about these last things. So communication partners is a huge part. It's all the school personnel that we're talking about here. Obviously the closest contacts are teachers, teacher aides and peers, but all the people in the school community that could interact with a student with a communication impairment is officially a communication partner who may need some training in what AAC is and how they can use it. I think that you can do AAC on your own, one lonely teacher in one lonely classroom, but it's just so much better and richer and more successful when everybody does it together. So we're going to, in the third segments of the videos, we will have a focus on what's key skills that you need in your teams so that using AAC can be done. We'll also have a talk about AAC tools and A devices in the next session. Oh, there's the blank space filled for all of the work that we want to talk about around AAC tools. And then we'll also have a section on environments. Hold that space. We're coming back more to see how you might set up your environment to get started in a school. And I guess the last thing I'll finish with just by saying is that even though we follow this framework and we do the best that we can, it's really important to realize that we can't just put an AAC device, a tool in front of a kid and just expect that they will automatically use it. Just like putting yourself in front of a piano doesn't make you a musician. It's some kids might just pick it up and use it, but the majority really need to see how it looks and feels and how they play it, or how they make music with it, or in this case, build language with it. So hopefully in our subsequent videos, sorry, I lost my train of thought. In our subsequent videos, you will get to see just some of the ways that we can support students across the right tools, across the environment, and for all those people around them to support a person with an intellectual disability to use that AAC to build their communication and learning. Okay, so we've done it again. We're through another video, and please watch the other parts in this video to get more information, and I'll see you soon. Bye now.